This video is addressed to bishops, priests and deacons. In it I am not going to criticise the form of Mass imposed on the Church by Pope Paul VI, but will be appealing for tolerance and flexibility. My very existence falsifies Pope Francis's assertion that we who are attached to the preconciliar Latin Mass all have rigid minds and are in need of re-education. I have a doctorate in theoretical physics. I'm a self-taught philosopher with influences as diverse as John Stuart Mill, Nietzsche, Karl Popper, John Henry Newman, Plato, Ayn Rand and David Chalmers. I've published a book on sexual ethics in which I try to develop ecclesial tradition in accord with justice and in a humane, careful and rational manner. Moreover, I am gay and live in England with my civil partner, who is also a Catholic much attached to the traditional Latin Mass. So, why do I personally value the old Roman Latin Mass? First, the primitive Roman anaphora links me to the Church of Gregory the Great and before. Its direct, naive, unsophisticated language is a clear testament to the belief of the Catholics of those early days. I fail to understand why any Orthodox Catholic could ever have wanted to depart from using this Eucharistic prayer, which is so hallowed by centuries of use and is such a solid link to our forebears. Its place in the cultural heritage of the Latin Church is akin to that of the anaphora of Chrysostom and Basil in the Greek Church, or Mark in the Coptic Church, or of James in the Syriac Church. These communities would never countenance abandoning one of the most precious aspects of their ancestral legacy. Second, the entire liturgical act is directed outwards and focused unswervingly on God. The clergy and laity are caught up together in attending to what is divine and heavenly rather than secular and mundane. The vast majority of my life is concerned with material things, physical necessities, and dealing with other human beings. It is a great relief and highly therapeutic to feel myself a part of a greater whole, the Church, whose business is not primarily with this world, but of that which is to come. In the words of the liturgy of John Chrysostom, let us put aside all earthly cares, stand aright, and worship. In the words of the Apostle James, let us worship reverently and in awe. Lay participation in the action at low Mass may be subtle, but can be acutely intense precisely because of the subtlety. Explicit lay participation in the action at high Mass can and should be much greater, of course. Third, reception of Holy Communion in the old Roman Mass is recollected and reverential, and so facilitates an intimate spiritual and personal encounter with Jesus. Fourth, the repeated invocation of Patris, Filii et Spiritus Sancti, and the genuflection at the words et incarnatus est, reminds me of the centrality of the doctrines of the Trinity and Incarnation in the Catholic religion. Fifth, the traditional Roman liturgy presumes and demands that every aspect of the action is characterized by beauty and decorum. The music employed, especially plain chant and polyphony, the vestments worn, the incense burned, and the very comportment of the clergy and servers is all required to be beautiful and devout, not garish, offhand and casual. The traditional Roman Mass is an act of love, an expression of an intense yearning for union with the divine. It is not a concert, gig, amusement, pastime, distraction, or entertainment. When every other kind of liturgical variation is tolerated in Roman Catholicism, I will refrain from listing the innovations and deviations from those norms supposedly now in force, but which are more honoured in the breach than the observance. Why should the traditional Latin Mass be the only form of diversity which is to be suppressed? What harm is there in its celebration? What cause is there to marginalise, defame, antagonise and persecute Orthodox and devout Roman Catholics who are attached to their cultural heritage? I will not give the obvious answer to this question, but leave you to supply it. Thank you for attending to what I have to say. I implore you to take it to heart.